All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Waves of Wellness, or WOW, number 37. We have been doing this for such a great long time. We've had so many wonderful shows and healthy habits that Dr. Gloria or myself or our wonderful guests have introduced to help you all and to help support the QTWave. The goal here with WOW is to help you layer healthy habits and lifestyle practices that you can do that support the QTWave. And we've seen this because Darlene does all of her bioscan tests, and she can see how it helps support when you guys make lifestyle changes. Plus, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. So something's got to change. And today, we are so lucky to have a special guest that's going to help you change things. But for the new people, so my cohort here is Dr. Gloria, who has been a naturopath and homeopath and had a clinical practice for over 40 years. She also writes our blog. She has healthy recipes that are submitted to you guys each week. And we have a cooking show together that's actually more of a class that's really, really fun. So I encourage you to come and cook with us. And I am a health coach and personal trainer and a Reiki master. And so my goal has always been to help people age stronger and healthier instead of sicker and weaker. And in the past, I have shown you where you have choices, where you can pivot, do a 180, and change the trajectory of your health. And we've seen it with all of these member testimonials, but we know that it's about the wave. The twine wave is magical, but we also know that the healthier you live your life, the easier it is. It supports the wave. So that's why we want to encourage you to do both. Okay. So let's get started with Dr. Gloria. We are going to have the meditation at the top of the hour. And so if anybody wants to do it in French again, let's actually take a poll really quick so I can dig it
wait a
up.
minute. We're going to do a meditation at the top of the hour now?
Well, it's 11:07 right now, so the top of the hour would be 12.
Okay, got you. Okay.
So yeah, after Marian
Okay.
shares her magic with us. So Kira says yes on French, only one. Magda, I'm going to tell, okay, you guys, let's do French today. Okay. And here's why, because we don't do it. And number two, when you're not listening to words, you're going within. Okay. So you are totally 100% just going into your heart space and letting the wave do its work. And guess what? Mine is at 100 now. I have it set for 100. So we're going to have, it's going to be off the hook. And not next week, but the week after on Vibe Tribe, I'm going to talk about the law of oneness and the mycelium effect that the HHS delivers. And that the more of you guys that get them, we are growing this network in the ether that is going to help you and everyone around your home, your community. It's going to be magical. So I'll talk more about that later. But for now, hello, Marian. How's it going today?
Good. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm so happy that you're
Talk
here.
about what I love.
Say that again.
Pardon? I'm happy to be here and talk about what I love.
So we know that you're here to talk about herbs, all things herbs, and how they can actually help each and every one of us. But first, I'm going to do a little disclaimer. Anytime we have health information like this, we want to tell you that you are doing this and to be mindful. And we are not going to have any responsibility for actions that you take. So do your own research. Make sure that you identify things around you before you consume them, and make sure that there's no contraindications with any medication you're on or any issues you have. And we'll get more into that. But Cynthia was really clear. She's like, you must do a disclaimer before this, because we don't want you ingesting something like, okay, I have gone to the mountains, the redwoods, and there's mushrooms everywhere. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if that one's good. So we just want you to be safe and make sure that you are taking care of yourself and not doing anything without first identifying and researching to make sure it's good for you. Okay, there's my disclaimer. All right, so Marian, how long have you been playing with herbs?
Probably for about 30 years. But when I started out, it was very minimal. I started out just becoming acquainted with stinging nettle, which grows profusely on my property. I've lived on this property for 40 years, and I didn't pay much attention to things like that, except if they got in the way of the garden. And so I started looking at stinging nettles in a new way because I heard somewhere that they were good food in the springtime when there's not much else in the garden yet, and that they were medicinal also. And I thought that was rather intriguing. So I started looking at them closely. They grow a lot on my property. And I just started paying attention, and I got acquainted with them, and I started loving them.
So
And
you said food. Now I've heard of nettle tea, but what you said, do you actually like harvest them and cook them too?
yes, they make a nice steamed greens dish. They can be added to soups and scrambled eggs and whatever you care to add them to. And that takes the sting away from them as soon as you start to cook them. And they're rather tasty. They're an interesting spinach-like taste. So
Mhm.
I started eating them, and I started noticing where on my property they grow, and I started talking to them, and I fell in love with them. I didn't realize until later, looking back, that a relationship that I was developing with the nettles was a relationship to nature, and it
Wow.
helped me draw myself closer in with nature. It was about time. I'm living in a ecstasy of woods and nature. So that was my beginning. And then my second falling in love with a came just a year ago. Last spring, about this time, I noticed again for the 100th time all the nettles growing, or all the cleavers growing on my land.
Oh,
And yes. And thanks to
yay.
Dr. Gloria, this is what I did. But I didn't know at the time. I just felt them
Mhm.
calling to me. And I thought, well, I don't know what these are for, but they're for something, and they're here for a reason. So I started collecting them a year ago. And I collected them all during their season. And then I dried them, turned them into powder, put them in a jar, and put them away, and said to myself, I don't know what these are here for, but I'm sure there's a good purpose. And then about 3 or 4 months later, thank you, Dr. Gloria, I heard you talk about the value of cleavers. So I started adding them to what up to that time had been my frequent tea of nettles. So what I do now is usually in the morning, but not every day, I have a cup of tea made first with nettle leaves that I have picked and dried last March when they were in their season. And then I add part of a spoon of cleavers to that. And then if I want to take that day an eyedropper of any of my tinctures, I just add that to the tea cup. Then I pour the hot water in and let it sit for about 10 minutes, at which point the alcohol from the tinctures is gone and
Mhm.
the tea is just nicely warm, which is how I like it. So that's how I do that. And I realized when something calls out to me, listen, and I'm doing that more and more all the time. And it's the foraging that puts me in that space.
Yeah, that's so cool. Where do you live? What
That's
state are you in?
Washington State.
Washington. See, and I was in Idaho. My organic farm for 21 years was in Idaho. And so I had the same thing that she's experiencing. I never mixed the two, though. That's interesting because they both have very, very high medicinal value. So that's a good hint. I didn't mix the two.
Mm.
So I have a question for you. Since you're in Washington, um, do you have any mullein growing on your
Yes,
property?
a lot of them.
Ah, We
I
have to do
made
a
it-
whole show on mullein because it's one of
Yes.
my favorite herbs besides cleavers.
That
Yeah.
was another one that spoke to me. By growing
And,
a plant that was probably 20 feet high.
yep. And make sure you use gloves and don't get that little fuzz on you because mullein is a beautiful grayish green leaf that is furry and it has beautiful yellow spiked flowers, doesn't it, Marian?
Yes.
And if you get that on you, you will itch. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. So I used to have my caretaker who helped me part-time on the farm, he would harvest them for me and I dry them in the attic. So do you know what they're for? I can say that. I'm not prescribing, but I can tell you what
Well,
it's for, and later on we could do a show on it.
Typically, they are called a herbal remedy for the lungs.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It's Verbascum thapsus is the Latin name for it, and it is for the lungs. It comes in capsules if you buy them as a supplement. But do you know why? I'm going to test you now because I love what you're saying. I love sharing this.
Why?
Do you know why it works?
No, I don't.
Mullein, spelled Mullein, acts like a magnet. And in Eastern Europe, they use it to avoid pneumonia. Because when you get a bad cold and it goes into your lungs, or you have a lot of allergies and it starts going into your lungs, it has avoided me getting pneumonia. I can't tell you how many times when I was traveling internationally and I'd be on the silly airplanes. And you can drink it as a tea, or you can take it as in a capsule, dried, and it literally acts like a magnet. And you start coughing up all the junk, all the phlegm and the fluid that is what causes pneumonia. Now with mullein, you have to be careful because it can dry you out too much. You know how it is, Marian, when it gets real cold or if it snows and it hurts to breathe?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you take a deep breath in the snow. That's what it starts feeling like if you don't need that much mullein. So you take some 2 or 3 times a day. Don't swallow the mucus, cough it up. And then once you start feeling like I take capsules because I'm not on a farm right now. So if I started getting something in my chest, I would take one mullein 3 or 4 times a day. Doesn't upset your stomach. You don't have to take it with food. But then if my lungs start feeling dry, if I start kind of hurting, like that cold lung feeling, they call it, then back it down. And then once your symptoms stop it. Don't continue it to be like proactively. It's amazing. And all of the doctors and naturopaths in Eastern Europe use it for that. Very few people get pneumonia because as soon as they start getting sick, my patients for 40 years never go anywhere without a bottle of mullein capsules. So there you go. Dry it and drink it with your tea if in the winter if you get a cold.
That was one of the first tinctures I made because when I
Was it?
started getting really excited about this, I said to myself, if I couldn't buy things for whatever reason, what remedies would I want to have on hand for myself and my family? And so I just started thinking about heart, lungs, et cetera, what's important here. And
Right.
and so mullein was one of the first remedies that I made, one of the first tinctures. And sometimes
Wow.
I add that
That's
to my
great.
tea. If I
Yep.
feel
So
like
if you get a cold or something starts in your chest, just keep adding it. Just don't do it all the time proactively. Like I said, it will dry out the lungs. Like your nose can dry out when it's cold and you could get a bloody nose. Your lungs, I don't think would bleed, but you don't want them that dry because it hurts.
right. Well, I take it when it calls to me.
Right. Right.
I can look at some a half a dozen tinctures sitting on my counter and just see what am I inclined to reach for, and that's the best I can do on muscle testing. I haven't
Right.
got muscle testing as acutely, and I'm still working on that. But I am developing a way of listening by looking and feeling the tinctures. So then that's what started me off on what shall I collect and how much of it is growing right here on my property. And shall I make tinctures or shall I dry the leaves for tea? And sometimes it just seemed right to dry the leaves for tea, and sometimes a tincture seemed appropriate. And so this is probably a good time to say a word about tinctures.
Wait, actually, I want to go back. Okay. So I want to hear how the nettle helped you and what reasons somebody might want to drink nettle tea.
I can't say what nettle did in terms of changing my body or healing anything, because I don't have another me to compare it with who didn't take it.
Good point.
So I'm up and down with that. But in the meantime, what it has done mostly for me is helped me start developing such a much deeper relationship with nature. So for that alone, I am eternally grateful to nettles. And if you start to do your proper research, which we all need to do, you will find that nettles have a huge long list of remedies that they claim. And so it's just, every time I see that list, I'm just amazed. I'm amazed all over again, because there's so many aspects to the body that benefit from nettles.
So do you mind
Yes.
if I just insert that really quick so that so the listeners know
Insert what?
the list of benefits?
I don't have it in front of me.
I do.
Oh, well, yay. Let's hear it.
So,
Marian, you should have known she would have pulled it up already.
well,
Since we
I'm trying to be
started,
thorough where this is a conversation. So it's just about being thorough. So they're high in antioxidants, particularly polyphenols and carotenoids. They help manage allergy symptoms, which would make sense that they're available in March, reduce inflammation. They are high in vitamin C and K and a bunch of different minerals. They help with urinary tract infections, women's health, hair loss, prostate health, skin conditions such as acne. That's pretty much a lot, right?
that's a lot.
So
Oh my
then
gosh.
the next thing you covered was the Cleaver's tea. So why don't you tell the listeners what they might not already know from Dr. Gloria's talk on the Cleaver's tea benefits?
I've not explored cleavers to that extent.
Okay.
I have to admit.
Well,
You want me to talk?
our second WoW call, Dr. Gloria did a presentation about lymph.
Yes,
And
the lymph. And that's
Yeah.
what I was so happy about when I realized I already had the remedy in my kitchen cupboard. And all I had to do was start using it, because now I knew. And I loved every bit of that talk from you, Dr. Gloria. I'm looking right now to find stinging nettles, because I want to see what the adverse effect might be.
do you have a book, like a book on
I have
herbs?
2 books that I'm going to recommend.
Okay.
Okay, on stinging nettles, she says towards the end, warning, do not use in high doses if pregnant, as it can bring on menstruation. Now that's amazing, because usually there's a paragraph after each herb at the end saying when to be careful and what to not combine it with. And she goes into some detail about that. That's all she says about nettles. Don't use it if you're pregnant.
Okay, that's
So
great.
I think that's pretty amazing right there.
And then the third one you covered was the mullein, and you said it was good for lung health.
Yeah.
Mullein, yeah.
Mullein? Okay, mullein. Awesome. All right. And then, so you make teas, but you make tinctures. So first I want to ask you, when you're out in your yard or, your property and you see things that you haven't noticed before, how do you identify them?
Well, I had a friend that could identify everything. and he passed away last month. And so I'm still hurting in my heart for him as a loss now. And I haven't learned to communicate with him from the other side. So
Yeah.
I don't take any chances ever. I make sure that I know absolutely what I'm looking at and what I'm going to eat or make a tincture out of that, so that I know for sure. And that's one of the books I recommend is called The Lost Book of
Yep,
Herbal Remedies. And
I have that. It's amazing.
this is my favorite because the pictures are great. Ordinarily, I don't identify plants from pictures. I only identify them for my use from someone who can look at it and tell me exactly what it is that they know.
Mhm.
And that's what my friend always did for me. Bless his heart, he was wonderful. And so, anyway, this book is one of the few exceptions that I will pay attention to the photos because they're so clear and so well done. So, I think if you're only going to have one book, it would be The Lost Book of Herbal Remedies by Nicole Appelian. And my other book, which I just acquired recently, is called The Complete Medicinal Herbal.
I'm laughing, Marian, because that's the two
got the
books that I always had my patients buy. I mean, and
Yes.
that book was old. She was in England at the time, and it's great.
Is the
Yes.
so those. I think it's a good idea to have at least two books so that you can compare. But it's also good to have more if you can and if you want to. I have more, but I always go back to these two.
Yeah,
because
so
they
do
do
I.
that.
So do I.
Have you ever
One
tried
other
it?
thing,
Go ahead.
Tracy, you're so good at this. I'm not as good at it as you are. There is an app. Remember we talked about that once before? There's an app where you can get up close to the plant, take a picture of it, and it'll tell you exactly what it is, what it's good for, and what precautions. So
Yes.
somebody's got to find that app so we can tell our members.
There are a lot.
There's a lot. So that's another way, Marian, to do it. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. Those are definitely Dr. Gloria recommended books. Good for you. Those are the top two in my list.
Another remedy that I think, Tracy, I know you will love, ashwagandha.
Mm.
It's probably my favorite as a remedy.
Yeah.
And I don't grow it. It doesn't do well in my climate. I do have a couple of plants in my greenhouse, and I baby them and I just try to keep them alive because I love the plant and it's a good remedy for me. And but it calls for the remedy part of it calls for the root, and so I would have to grow a lot of plants in order to have enough roots to do something with. So I just love it in my greenhouse as a friend, and then I buy my roots from a source, a good source.
That's lovely. Yeah. So, and you know what? Okay. So here's the trippy thing about me. I don't like killing plants. I have such a hard time pulling an old plant out of the garden or killing anything. And so it would be hard for me to have to take it out, kill the roots, and then you just waste the plant. So I hear you.
Yeah. I can't do that either.
Some other things that I've made are I've made hawthorn tincture from the berries, and hawthorn berries have a long history in Scotland.
Right.
I ran across a woman who lives in the Netherlands of Scotland, and from her I learned about how the ancient people treasured the hawthorn trees or bushes, and their livestock liked them and benefited from them, and the people, and that's a heart medication, hawthorn.
Yes.
So
well, it's not a medication.
So let me.
It's
Oh,
a
no, it's an herb.
remedy.
Right. But let me interject that hawthorn berry, Marian is so correct. It is a heart medication, and it is what they make digitalis, the drug, from. That's the first base of the drug, digitalis, that the doctors give you for your heart. So it's basically the natural source of the drug. Digitalis is a very old medicine. My father in the 50s took it for his heart condition. And hawthorn is the natural part of it. It's what
I
they
heard,
started with. I don't know how they've chemically changed it now, but that is what was the base of digitalis.
uh, I have been told that a person can rebuild their heart in a year's
Yep,
time with
with hawthorn berry. I agree.
But now that's
I
a
agree.
different situation. That's different than what I do. I take a dropper full of this or a dropper full of that now and then. But when someone is heading for a, a do-over of some
Yeah.
organ, they really must have advice and guidance from someone who really knows this plant and knows your body, because that's a whole, that takes it to a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not only to a whole other level, but they have to be consistent. That's why sometimes buying the organic dried capsules are better, because you have to take a lot of it. And if you're going to avoid, or somebody with cardiomyopathy, I've had a lot of patients with that. They literally avoided having a heart transplant with hawthorn berry and CoQ10. So it's important that we understand that you take a lot of it. I mean, it's not like you can just drink a couple cups of tea and
Yeah,
you've got a heart condition. So you do need professional guidance, because you've got to go by weight, by age, and by what other conditions could be underlying.
yes.
Good
Uh,
for you. You've got hawthorn.
I picked my hawthorn berries from a friend's tree, and I've also picked linden tree flowers, because that is
Mm-hmm.
a very well known and a very gentle remedy. So that was another one
Yes.
that I made, and I haven't. I sometimes use that just because I feel drawn to it. And this was on the property of the gentleman that I mentioned that just passed. So
Mm.
I made it for him and for me both out of his flowers, but he hasn't been able to use it very long.
So
So,
how do you make the tinctures, Marian?
oh, the tinctures. Well, it would take a lot more time than I think we have for me to explain the exact process. So I want to recommend that if you want to make them, get the book and and study that, and hopefully find a friend that you can stand in her kitchen with her and watch her do it. But there are many good ways to learn how to actually make it. What I wanted to say, particularly about the tinctures, some people balk at the fact that the tinctures are alcohol based. The
Mm-hmm.
base is vodka, and and so I don't really like the idea of, when I give myself a dropper of something, that I have to have vodka too, because I may not be in the mood for vodka. And so what I do is I put it, like when I put it in my tea that I mentioned, I with my stinging nettles tea, I give it 10 minutes. And by the time all the little vapors, that go up from the alcohol in the hot water, by the time those are gone, the alcohol is gone. So I
That's
don't,
right.
I don't, not dealing with alcohol very much of the time. Once in a great while, especially with ashwagandha, if I feel a real need for ashwagandha, I'll just take it as it is. But for the most part, I make a point to put my droppers full of whatever it is in boiling water first, and that takes
Smart.
care of that. So what I do when I make the tinctures, I add my vodka, stir it, and then put it away in a dark, cool place for 2 weeks, and shake it every day. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, strain it, and it's done. But there are fine points. And one of them is, which is the most important one of all, is that I talk to the materials I'm working with all while I'm making it. And when I go to shake it every morning, I tell them that I appreciate them, that I love them, and that I have great expectations for them, and that we'll work together because we're here together. And so that's our job, is to work together and to be healing, to bring joy, to bring better health when it's possible. And and I get so much pleasure out of doing that. That just, you see, that's an extension of what I got from the nettles in the very beginning, is to really feel the beauty and the strength of these herbs, and to truly love them and accept what they have to offer me. So that has been just a really happy journey, and it doesn't change or go away. It gets better all the time. So that's how I make them. But as I said, there's fine points. The person that I learned to make tinctures from is a woman who had a business, a home business, making all kinds of tinctures and supplying this small community with all the tinctures that anybody wanted. She's become a very good friend of mine. Right now, she's having serious health issues, but she's coming through beautifully. And so she's my mentor, but she's not real good at identifying every plant in the world. So I'm still a little weak in that point. But
You're still a little weak.
maybe it's time for me to identify plants in a different way, in a new way.
Maybe it is. Maybe it
Yeah.
is. Marian, one thing I think is important, because I've made thousands of tinctures, is to remind people when they make tinctures at home, it should be in a dark bottle. Cobalt blue, dark green, brown. Don't ever put them in a clear bottle, because the light will deteriorate them and the frequency deteriorates. I don't know if you knew that.
Yes.
And especially now that we have, yeah, you do know that. And so I always bought whatever bottles I could get in bulk. I used to buy them 140, a gross at a time. And most of the time, because I love cobalt blue, I used to buy cobalt blue dropper bottles. So just make sure that it's dark, glass, never, ever, ever plastic, and make sure that you keep them in a dark, cool cupboard. If you don't have a pantry that's cool, don't put them, whatever you do, like next to the stove or in the kitchen where it's going to get hotter. Make sure you keep them in a place that it's cool, dark, and dry, not humid if you can avoid it.
And I want to mention that I know that some people really don't like making their tinctures with alcohol. They think that that's a bad deal and it's too much trouble to take the alcohol out. But the reason for it, in my understanding, is that the alcohol pulls out more of the essence of the material than the other ways of making the tinctures. So
you're right.
That's a good enough reason for me. It doesn't have to be expensive vodka. It can be bargain vodka. So that's about the best I think we can do today on how to make the tinctures. Tracy?
Have you tried making them with oil? Like my husband sometimes makes tinctures and he uses olive oil. He's done MCT oil. Have you ever tried that?
No, I haven't. I haven't gotten into oils, and I haven't gotten into lotions or soaps. I know that all those things are really great to use my herbs with, but I'm just not ready to take on a whole nother
realm.
Yeah, realm of this, because I'm enjoying what I'm doing so much. But I will. There will be a time when I'll do salves.
Yeah.
I know that calendula, which grows wild in my garden.
I was just going to tell you, calendula and arnica you should always have.
Yeah. That's a very good salve. I buy it now.
Yeah. Tracy, the reason that I never used oil, and remember, I was in Amish country, so I learned a lot from the Amish, but I was raised by a grandmother who was a herbalist and a midwife. So I started making herbal tinctures and salves when I was 8 or 10 years old. And oil goes rancid too easy if you don't have it at the perfect temperature. Now, I have patients to this day that are Amish, and they have family members that are not Amish that have these little wine refrigerators, you know, that go under the counter, and they keep their oil tinctures in there because you have to keep it like wine at a certain temperature so that it doesn't go rancid. That's the problem with oils. With, like she was saying, like Marian was saying, with alcohol, the minute you put it into most of the homeopathics have alcohol base. They also have taught us that once you put the alcohol in your mouth, under your tongue, sublingually, if you're taking like a tincture or a homeopathic, the saliva will cut out the alcohol because you're not drinking it, you're putting it in sublingually. And I hope I'll get you and David a laugh here because you're up in Washington, so you'll understand what I'm saying. When I made all my tinctures on my farm, I used to have to smuggle the alcohol across from Montana because in Idaho and Washington, they wouldn't let you have the Everclear, which is the strongest alcohol you can buy. And I'd smuggle gallons of Everclear in my van and just put blankets on top of it and come across. Nobody ever asked anything, but you're not supposed to have it there. So I always had gallons of Everclear in my root cellar. But that's why, because it was pure alcohol and you didn't have to use a lot of it to preserve it. So anyway, I was alcohol running. So it might may change your attitude about Dr. Gloria, but yes, I ran alcohol across the state line.
Somebody had to do it.
Well, yeah, I know. You know, in Montana, you can do it. So, so I was very close to the Montana border. So I just go get gallons when I needed it. And it was no big deal. It wasn't any more expensive than cheap vodka at that time. So I don't know what it is now.
So Marian,
Tracy.
Star Aruba has a question. Can you refrigerate the tinctures if your homes are hot and humid?
Well, you certainly could. I would say to do whatever you can do to find a cool, dark place. Maybe it's under the house. Maybe it's in another building. But if you absolutely can't, then I guess I would probably put them in the refrigerator.
Okay.
I would go for
Tracy. What people do is if they do a lot of tinctures, not just if you have 1 or 2 bottles, get one of the little cheap bar refrigerators like at Costco or something. I know in Aruba you're not going to get a Costco probably, and put the temperature up a little bit more than you would for food, so that you can keep it cool. And you can stick that in a closet, in a pantry, whatever. Just one of the small bar refrigerators just for tinctures. I know people that actually do that make their tinctures. So I don't know, Marian. Do you? I don't know for sure if refrigerating them would harm them. I really don't know.
I don't see how it would. I mean, it's like putting
It would. No.
It's like putting your garden seeds in the freezer. You know, people think,
that's right.
What? Put them in the freezer? That's the best place for them. That's where they stay in a state that doesn't change.
Yep.
There was another criteria that I used when I was looking at what do I need for the future? What do I need to have a good medicine cabinet for whatever comes up with any family member? And I looked at sleep remedies. There are many, many, many sleep remedies. And there are pain remedies. There are remedies to stop the bleeding if there's a sudden injury and you can't get to help. And there are detox remedies, to name a few. And each of those categories has a number of remedies. So there's always going to be something in your neighborhood or something that works for you in other ways too. And so those are things that I've been looking at and adding to my collection, again, for Who needs it? I don't know yet. I don't know that anybody will. If nobody ever needs them, that's great.
I love that your heart is leading your way.
Yes.
You know, it's all a heart thing for you. And I love that emotional, spiritual connection that you have, because it's like, if we think about it, you know, all the plants are God's creation. We're God's creation. It's just like that whole synergistic feeling of being one.
Mhm.
And I hope
Absolutely.
today's little conversation will inspire you to, sometime in the next few days, go for a walk and find something that you can identify and pop it into your mouth. Now, when I say something that you can identify, I mean something like a dandelion. Everybody knows what a dandelion is. You can pluck off the yellow blossom and just into the mouth, and it's really quite tasty. I wouldn't say it's like a piece of chocolate candy, but it's nice. And then there's clover. I think we all know what clover looks like, and it has either a white flower or a purple flower, both of which are fine to eat. The purple is best. It has um, more remedy value, but they're both good. And so see what you can come up with. You may find other things that you already know are safe and that are edible, and you just didn't realize you knew what you know. So
Just make sure that's not an area that's sprayed. Like if you're taking a walk and it's alongside a golf course or a park or something where they've sprayed it, because then you're getting the pesticides. That's
good
very
point.
important.
And it's better not
Marian, have you ever made, whoops, sorry, have you ever made um, um, dandelion jelly?
No, I
It
haven't.
is so simple. It's delicious. You put a little bit of thickener in it. I have the recipe. I can share it later. I don't have it handy right now,
I'd like
but
to know.
it's very easy. You just pick those flowers, put them in the water. You even use the water, and you use a little organic pectin, and you have jelly. You strain those flowers afterwards, and you have jelly. It's delicious. And it's
I
very
would love to
medicinal. It
have
lasts about
that.
2 years. It lasts 2 years if you keep it cool, dark, and dry.
That's great to know, because we are a household that avoids sugar at all costs. But we like things that
Yep,
are
and you can add a little monk fruit, or you can add a little stevia. It doesn't matter, because the pectin's going to gel it. It's going to coagulate, and it's really tasty. It's almost like a honey. It's
very
not
good.
quite like a raw, unfiltered honey, but almost. They're cousins in flavor, because it's very good. The only reason I learned to make it is because, again, my Amish neighbors all made it, and so they taught me. But then I was so busy at that time with the clinic that I used to just buy it from them. But I have made it, and it's very simple. I'll dig up the recipe, Tracy, and get it to you if somebody's interested in dandelion jelly. It's very good.
I'm
Cool.
very
I'll
interested
make
in.
sure to share it.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I love, so are there any others that you haven't mentioned yet?
I make milk thistle. It's a very popular herb right now. Some people consider it an aid to detoxing the liver.
Yep.
And
It
so,
is the liver one, yes.
yeah.
So
And
you make those tinctures, milk thistle tinctures?
mhm.
Cool.
I have a nurse friend who I turn to sometimes when I have questions that my doctor would never answer. I called my nurse friend, and I gave her a tincture of milk thistle because I knew that was an issue for her. So that was a nice thing. I was so glad I had it. That was one of the first times that I ever had a chance to give something to somebody that I knew they wanted and that would be helpful for them. And a couple of times I have been able to give a tincture back to the woman that taught me how to make tinctures. So that was very,
That's cool.
very satisfying too.
That's
So
cool.
rhodiola is something that I just learned about, and um, it's very expensive. And so I thought it must be very valuable. And so I bought just a little bit of it and made a tincture. And it was one of the few things that when I put a dropper full of it in my mouth, in moments, I felt different.
Yeah,
So,
that it's an adaptogen. So basically what an adaptogen does, just like ashwagandha, is
yeah.
it helps you adapt to the stressors that you're experiencing in that moment. So it would make sense that you'd feel a difference.
Are you familiar with rhodiola
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
your own
We all
experience
are.
using it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an adaptogen.
Yeah, I
like
am
that
too.
and ashwagandha are the two that I would use.
Yeah,
They calm the adrenals down, which is your stress hormones.
yeah.
So that's a two. The only difference is I can't tolerate ashwagandha, but I can tolerate the rhodiola. I don't do well with ashwagandha at all,
But
but
you
the
can
other
talk
I do. So just pay
rhodiola.
attention. Yeah. Oh yeah. Rhodiola I have no problem with.
Does anybody have questions for Marian? She's covered so much. I feel like we need a summary sheet. I might have to have my assistant make that. There's so much here and I think it's so important. But my favorite part is that you're about you connecting with these plants. I just love that. That's just something I don't do myself and I should because we have 90 fruit trees and tons of vegetables and I need to take that as one of my healthy habits, Marian.
I needed that too.
Yes.
That has been an opening for me. Very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah. And the two books that Marian recommended are golden. No household should be without them.
You need
Now
both or
or
just
if we
can you
need them
just
in the
get one?
future.
Is one enough or do you need
Well,
both?
I would say if you were going to get, no, I would get both because they're very different in the way that they describe things. Don't you think, Miriam?
Yes,
The
but
pictures are beautiful, but I mean, they're different.
I would get the lost book of herbal
Yeah,
remedies.
the first one.
Get one.
Yeah,
Mm.
I'd get the first one. It's a thicker book. It's a bigger book. But the other one I've had since I studied in England in the 80s. I have the hardcover. It's all worn out and tattered and whatever, but I've had it since
I know
the 80s.
something. I know something I want to say. I noticed in the very beginning when I first got interested in nettles, I bought a very inexpensive little book by someone called Penny Royal, which is actually the name of a herb. But anyway,
Yeah.
she listed all the herbal remedies in, first of all, in alphabetical order according to the herb, and then in alphabetical order according to the problem or the issue, so that you could go back and forth. And I noticed, to my astonishment, that every herb had 10 to 30 things that it was known for in terms of the remedies. So one.
Do you know the name of the book? That one I don't know. I know who Penny Royal is, but I don't know the name of the book.
I'll run and get it before we're done. But then I noticed with the symptoms or the issues, the same thing was true. If you looked up one thing like hypoglycemia, there would be 15 different things you could take for it. So what I understood right off the bat is that nature is taking care of us. If we live in a region where there aren't a lot of things growing, then we're still going to have a remedy for everything we need because of this wide variety of usage. I mean, was that carefully planned by someone?
Of course.
We
just forgot.
Divine intervention.
I was so
divine
thrilled
intervention.
when I saw that. I thought, I can't go wrong by studying this and developing this, because this is a lifesaver for all of us. So I'm going to run and get that book.
Okay.
Get that book. And while she gets a book, I wanted to say that I have a list, if you're going to do some kind of a flyer, Tracy, of the herbs that the soldiers during the Civil War picked in the wild that helped them survive and not have any vitamin deficiencies, because all they could eat was whatever rations the neighboring people could bring them. And they knew which ones to pick. They had been trained. So I have a list of those. I think there's 13 or 14 herbs that they took for different things. And That was during the Civil War.
That would be.
I'll have to
see
dig that out.
list. This is
Yeah,
something
I'll
that
get the
I do.
list.
Whenever I see an article where someone's talking about herbal remedies, I look and see what their list is. And then I
Yeah.
jot it down and see how it compares with my list and her list and his
I
list.
agree.
And I just keep doing that.
Yeah.
I keep looking at every. This is called Herbally Yours by Penny Royal. And I'm sure it's out of print, but I think you can get it on Amazon. I paid $5.
Yeah, you can get it at all the used bookstores then. Yes. Oh, she just found it. Okay.
And you can see.
Leave it to. Oh, David did. Okay.
No, I did.
Could you hold it up again? We can see it. The front.
See the list.
The
That's a
front.
list
Yeah.
of things that Comfrey is known for. This one up here. That tells you what we're up against.
We show the cover again.
We can't help it be healthy. Herbally Yours.
You show the cover so we can see it. Okay. So that's a soft cover. That's not a hard cover.
Does that come backwards on
No, we
the
can
way
see
you
it.
get it?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
When I put it up,
We can see it.
backwards.
Yeah, we see it. Thank you.
David,
That's a great resource. That one I haven't seen, but I know who Penny Royal is. Yeah, that's great.
David said something. He's upstairs. Oh, the cover. Yeah. Yeah, it's falling apart, but
And
Oh,
Nancy,
so are mine.
Nancy asked if you wanted to purchase herbal tinctures, where is a good resource?
there's a place right here in Yelm called Blue. That is the same business that my friend had for years, and she retired and turned it over to some younger people. True Blue Herbs in Yelm, Washington. That's one thing. That's the only thing I know of that I have used myself personally. And I know.
Okay, there's a.
So
Sorry, go ahead. We
I
keep
don't
talking.
know.
I try not to.
I don't know much about other sources. There are many, many sources, but I haven't used them, and so I don't have any experience with them. I buy raw material from Mountain Rose in Oregon, and they sell tinctures also. Oh, and
Yes, and they're good.
This woman, I believe, sells her tinctures.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. She's got her own tinctures, and you can also look up Rosemary Gladstar. I think it's GLAD. Yeah, ST. I was a professor at the college with her. She's amazing. She's on the East Coast. I don't remember if it's North Carolina or. She's amazing, and whatever she has courses. You can go stay a week, and she'll forage. She has hundreds of acres. So Rosemary Gladstar, whatever she makes, you can count on. But the one you said in Oregon, what's the name? Because I used to buy from them.
Mountain Rose.
The one in Mountain Rose. They're a really good company too.
So you
yeah.
could buy herbs
Oregon.
from them and tinctures. I just posted a link I found. So I think an extract and a tincture are synonymous. Is that correct?
Yes. Is that right,
Okay.
Dr. Gloria?
No, not exactly.
Well,
Not
tell us the
exactly, because
difference.
usually an extract is done under pressure. It's almost like you're distilling water. It's different. They're used in distillers usually, or they're used in pressure. I've never done that kind of tinctures, but they are a little different. It's
Okay,
not the
so
same.
what we're talking about here are tinctures.
So we need to do our
Tinctures,
research on this one to see, because Mountain Rose sells a ton of extracts.
Yes. And I
Okay.
hope
Yeah,
that-
so you need to see what.
I hope I have been clear enough about each of us doing our own research.
Oh, yeah.
We absolutely
Yeah.
have to do our own research. And that's another thing I love about this. To me, making these things, because they are medicinal, is another step towards being sovereign. And that's
Yes,
part of, to
it
me,
is.
that's part of the spiritual journey.
Very good point.
Absolutely. Yeah, very good point. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was very inspirational, not just from the herbs, but like Tracy said, but how you've connected to the herbs and to Mother Earth, which is very important.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you, Dr. Gloria.
Thank you so much. Marian,
Thank you.
you are absolutely lovely. And I have to share with the listeners because we have to get going on the meditation. But I didn't realize when Marian emailed me that she was David's wife. And I was just like, oh, it's like she's right there with us. So it was really special to have her here. David is so helpful.
And to have David here. And to have David here.
Yeah.
that was
Lucky
great.
me to be David's wife.
What? Say that again?
I said, lucky me to be David's wife.
Aw, how long you guys been
Oh,
married?
that's nice. That's lovely.
26 years.
Congratulations. That is
That's
wonderful. Yeah, it's great to be married. I have
Hey.
been married 34 years. So, but I just want to thank you, Marianne, so much for providing this valuable knowledge. I think I'm going to do a little bit of research to see if I can differentiate, to see if these mountain rose extracts are a substitute for making your own tincture. But I think it's always best when we do things on our own, if we can find the time or make the time, I should say. And then that way we can actually use our surroundings. It's part of the whole, we're moving towards that. What did that one lady come on and talk about? Oh, come on, help me here with that. When you're
Self-sufficiency.
yeah, you're self-sufficient, but would she call it? It's something called that people are doing nowadays.
Sovereign.
No.
Prepping.
Well, it's when you're living off on your own, we had a speaker
Off the grid when you're
Homesteading.
sovereign and you're off the grid.
off the grids one, homesteading. That's the word I'm looking for.
Okay, yeah.
So that is one of the things
Yeah.
important for homesteading is learning how to do what you're teaching. So I appreciate you with the teas and the tinctures and, identifying. I think I'm going to start off with an app to go and identify. And then that will be a good start for me while I'm out and about to go around the property and see if the app can identify. So, this is
And remember, the books will tell you the precautions. They'll tell you the contraindications. So don't forget to look at that. Like if you're on certain blood pressure medications or heart medications or diabetes, if it says it thins your blood, if it says that it's contraindicated with heart medications, don't decide to doctor yourself, because this is natural medicine in its purest form. So
Thank you so
be
much
careful
for
with that.
letting me talk about this to people who are interested. That's great. I love
That's
it.
wonderful. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Marianne, so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started on the meditation.
Okay, thank you.
So are
Bye-bye,
you
everybody. Thank
okay?
you.
Bye, Dr. Gloria. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
always
no,
adding wisdom.
You're welcome.
Okay, did Cynthia jump on? Let me look. I was looking in speaker view. Let's see if Cynthia's here. No. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move to my comfy spot and we'll get started. We'll do the French one just because it's a nice change. And then next week, maybe, oh no, I won't be here next week. Maybe we'll do the Japanese one. So, okay. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone. So at the beginning, please state your intention, because unless you speak French, you're not going to know when you're told to do it. And we don't want to miss doing that. Okay. So let me share screen. I love the French one. I think it gets me really deep. Okay. I think I just saw Cynthia join in. Is it our Cynthia? Yep. Okay. I'll let her just rest and relax, and we will get started.
Bienvenue à la méditation du moment miraculeux d'aujourd'hui, présentée par QHS et Qui. Avant de commencer, prenons une minute pour comprendre le pouvoir de notre connexion collective grâce aux technologies QHS. Lorsque nous nous réunissons, nous amplifions de façon exponentielle l'effet Quantum Twine Wave, délivrant des ondes jumelles quantiques à chaque appareil et à chacun d'entre nous dans le monde entier, incluant tous les membres, même ceux qui n'ont pas d'appareil, les personnes que vous avez l'intention de soutenir et la Terre elle-même. Les méditations du moment miraculeux augmentent et amplifient l'effet de l'onde jumelle quantique pour chaque participant et avec chaque connexion supplémentaire entre QTWave et Home Healing System. Chaque système ajouté au réseau augmente la puissante, profonde et consciente onde jumelle quantique à travers chaque membre. C'est une magnifique communication instantanée, coordonnée et collaborative avec chaque appareil présent. Aujourd'hui, nous allons vous guider dans une méditation. Il est important de noter qu'elle durera environ 20 minutes. Nous vous encourageons à rester présent et conscient tout au long de la session. Si vous avez des visions ou des émotions, c'est normal. Autorisez-vous à les ressentir et à les accueillir et restez présent. La méditation comporte plusieurs parties, chacune conçue pour vous guider vers un état plus profond de relaxation et de connexion avec votre essence divine intérieure. La première partie se concentre sur l'induction d'une relaxation profonde, vous permettant d'entrer dans un état où votre esprit et votre corps sont réceptifs à la transformation. La deuxième partie consiste à se connecter avec les ondes quantiques, les énergies christiques et l'étincelle divine en vous. Cette connexion facilite un alignement profond avec les énergies universelles, de l'amour, de la guérison et de la complétude. Dans la troisième partie de la méditation, nous approfondissons votre bien-être. Nous vous permettons de vivre pleinement et de vous souvenir de votre intégrité et de votre vitalité innée. Dans la quatrième partie, nous entrons dans un moment de silence serein. Ce silence offre une occasion de calme, d'introspection et de connexion. Cette réflexion tranquille vous permet de vous concentrer vers l'intérieur en accordant une attention particulière à vos pensées, vos sentiments ou vos idées. Nous vous encourageons également à renforcer votre lien avec les ondes quantiques jumelles pendant ce silence, en vous accordant à leur présence douce et en permettant à leurs énergies curatives de circuler librement en vous. Enfin, nous concluons la méditation en douceur, en veillant à ce que vous vous sentiez ancré, centré et rajeuni. Les ondes quantiques jumelles scannent chaque participant de la tête aux pieds, puis envoient des fréquences de guérison selon les besoins, là où c'est nécessaire, selon la demande. Dans un instant, nous vous demanderons de couper vos micros et de dire à haute voix comment vous aimeriez que les ondes quantiques vous aident, qu'il s'agisse de soutenir une partie spécifique de votre corps ou d'aider quelqu'un que vous aimez. Exprimez clairement votre intention. Une fois que vous avez exprimé votre intention, prenez votre appareil QTWave et placez-le sur la partie de votre corps où vous voulez concentrer votre attention et manifester le changement. Si vous n'avez pas d'appareil, vous pouvez placer votre main à cet endroit. Si vous avez l'intention de soutenir quelqu'un d'autre, vous pouvez placer votre appareil ou votre main sur la partie de votre corps où cette personne a besoin de soutien. Rappelez-vous que lorsque vous vous guérissez vous-même, vous guérissez les autres. Tout au long de cette méditation, n'hésitez pas à déplacer l'appareil ou vos mains vers d'autres zones si nécessaire. Si vous avez un HHS, mettez-le sur 20 maintenant. À la fin de la séance, sachez que les effets continueront à agir. Donc si vous ressentez le besoin de vous reposer, prenez le temps de le faire. Merci de guérir ce monde magnifique en commençant par vous. Commençons par couper nos micros et énoncer nos intentions à voix haute. Installez-vous dans la position qui vous convient en ressentant le confort naturel de votre propre présence. Fermez doucement les yeux, portez votre attention vers l'intérieur. Observez le rythme naturel de votre respiration qui s'écoule vers l'intérieur et vers l'extérieur. Sentez cette respiration remplir chaque partie de votre corps, vous nourrir et vous apaiser. En expirant, laissez partir les tensions et l'inconfort. Reconnaissez que ces sensations ne sont pas vous, qu'elles sont passagères simplement. Au début de cette prise de conscience, observez-les se dissoudre dans le néant sans laisser de traces. Vous êtes illimité, libre de ces sensations et de leur définition. À chaque respiration, sentez-les se dissiper à mesure que vous devenez plus présent, plus paisible et profondément centré sur votre véritable essence. Approfondissons maintenant votre expérience avec un exercice de respiration qui enrichira votre méditation en créant une belle synergie entre votre monde intérieur et votre monde extérieur. Concentrez-vous sur le doux son de votre respiration à l'arrière de votre nez qui rappelle le murmure des vagues de l'océan. Le son audible de votre respiration, comme les vagues de l'océan, vous ancre dans le présent, reliant l'immensité du monde extérieur aux profondeurs de votre être intérieur. Il établit automatiquement l'harmonie et la cohérence entre votre corps, votre esprit, votre cerveau, votre cœur et tous vos systèmes énergétiques et spirituels. Il n'y a rien d'autre à faire que d'être dans ce moment, profondément détendu, pleinement soutenu et en paix. Identifiez la partie de votre corps qui se sent la plus détendue en ce moment. Cette partie peut être aussi petite que le bout d'un doigt ou aussi grande que l'ensemble de votre dos. Concentrez votre attention sur cette partie. Observez la sensation de détente, la profondeur et la sérénité qui s'en dégagent. Imaginez que cette sensation commence à s'étendre, comme de l'aquarelle sur du papier mouillé. Laissez cette sensation de détente s'étendre. À chaque respiration, cette sensation apaisante grandit. Elle vous remplit. Respirez profondément de façon rythmée et à plein poumon. Imaginez que la détente s'étend de plus en plus loin. Remarquez que ce n'est plus seulement une partie de vous qui est détendue. Votre être tout entier se sent enveloppé par cette énergie apaisante. Tout en continuant à respirer profondément, imaginez que les vagues de relaxation se répandent en cascade sur votre corps et le purifient. L'univers est au-dessus de vous, vous apportant un calme plus profond et une paix plus grande. Ces vagues sont rythmées, alignées sur votre respiration. Elles vous traversent, vous entourent. Sentez-vous porté par ces vagues de relaxation de plus en plus profondément dans un état de sérénité totale. Ici, dans cet espace, vous êtes libre d'explorer les profondeurs de votre monde intérieur et de plonger dans le vaste océan que vous êtes. Maintenant, accordons-nous à la fréquence des ondes jumelles quantiques. Prenons une respiration profonde et complète en nous immergeant totalement dans la présence des ondes jumelles qui nous entourent. Sentez ces ondes vous embrasser, vous infuser et vous offrir leur doux soutien. Tout en inspirant profondément, visualisez les ondes parcourir votre corps du sommet de votre tête jusqu'à vos orteils. Sentez les ondes couler à travers vous, favorisant une connexion et une résonance profonde avec votre plénitude parfaite. À chaque expiration, relâchez toute tension ou résistance. Permettez aux ondes quantiques d'infuser tous les aspects de votre corps. Remarquez les sensations lorsque ces ondes interagissent avec vos cellules, les remplissant de lumière rayonnante et d'énergie revitalisante. Faites l'expérience de la chaleur et de la vitalité de cette présence divine alors qu'elle se répand dans votre corps et vos systèmes énergétiques. Reconnaissez la présence de la conscience christique, l'énergie sacrée qui incarne l'amour inconditionnel, la compassion et la guérison au sein de ces ondes. Sentez cette énergie divine imprégner chaque aspect de votre être, éclairer votre chemin et vous guider vers la plénitude. En inspirant, imaginez que vos cellules s'éveillent à l'énergie de guérison des ondes quantiques et de la conscience christique. Sentez un alignement harmonieux se répandre dans tout votre corps, alors que chaque cellule vibre en accord avec les vagues de plénitude et d'amour inconditionnel. Abandonnez-vous au processus d'intégration. Faites confiance aux ondes quantiques et à la conscience éveillée. Sachez intuitivement où elles sont nécessaires. Soyez témoin du sentiment profond de paix et de détente qui accompagne cet abandon à l'énergie divine. Maintenant, déplacez votre conscience vers l'intérieur, vers l'étincelle divine qui réside en vous. Cette essence sacrée est votre connexion éternelle à la source de la création, vous rappelant votre divinité inhérente et votre caractère sacré. Sentez l'étincelle divine s'allumer en vous, vous remplissant du sens profond, de la puissance de votre raison d'être. Soyez témoin de son rayonnement dans tout votre corps, illuminant chaque cellule de sa lumière. Sentez les ondes quantiques s'harmoniser avec votre étincelle divine et l'énergie christique, amplifiant leur pouvoir et leur puissance. À chaque respiration, ces énergies divines se mêlent et fusionnent en vous, créant une symphonie d'amour et de lumière qui résonne dans tout votre être. Tout en continuant à respirer et à visualiser, abandonnez-vous à la profonde transformation qui s'opère en vous. Faites confiance à la sagesse et à la guidance de ces énergies divines, sachant qu'elles vous mènent vers une connexion plus profonde avec votre moi sacré. Laissez cette intégration vous remplir de paix, de force et de guérison, alors que nous passons à notre méditation, guidée par la lumière rayonnante de l'énergie christique, la présence inébranlable de votre étincelle divine et la puissante étreinte des ondes jumelles quantiques. Maintenant, détendez-vous et profitez de ce moment miraculeux. Bienvenue dans votre moment miraculeux. Conçu pour puiser dans la source de bien-être qui réside en vous, ce voyage commence par la compréhension du lien qui nous unit et que le chemin de la guérison collective commence au cœur de notre être individuel. En cultivant l'amour en nous, nous constatons que l'amour s'étend naturellement vers l'extérieur. En nous soignant nous-mêmes, nous posons les bases qui nous permettront de contribuer à la guérison des autres. Chaque acte de soin de soi est un tremplin vers une humanité plus saine, où la guérison de soi devient le catalyseur de la guérison du monde qui nous entoure. Commençons ce processus de transformation et embrassons la plénitude qui est notre vraie nature. Pour commencer, concentrez votre attention vers l'intérieur et balayez doucement votre corps du regard. Remarquez les sensations ressenties dans les différentes parties de votre corps. Tout en poursuivant cette douce observation, cherchez en vous un endroit où vous ressentez un sentiment de bien-être, de plénitude ou de joie. Il peut s'agir d'une sensation de chaleur dans le cœur, d'une légèreté dans la poitrine ou d'un espace calme dans l'esprit. Si vous sentez qu'un espace de bien-être n'est pas immédiatement apparent dans votre corps, permettez-vous d'élargir doucement votre recherche. Il pourrait se révéler dans un souvenir cher, une vision pleine d'espoir de l'avenir, ou dans les profondeurs tranquilles de votre esprit ou de votre âme. Votre bien-être existe en vous sous de nombreuses formes et dans de nombreux endroits. Et il attend votre reconnaissance. Une fois que vous avez trouvé ce point de bien-être, de plénitude ou de joie, concentrez votre attention sur lui. Observez ses qualités, la façon dont vous le ressentez, les sensations qui l'accompagnent, le sentiment de plénitude qu'il vous procure. Respirez dans cet espace et à chaque respiration, imaginez que les sensations de bien-être s'intensifient et deviennent plus vives, qu'elles se manifestent par une chaleur, un sentiment de plénitude ou une lueur intérieure. Maintenant, avec l'intention, commencez à permettre à cette sensation de bien-être de s'étendre, comme la chaleur du soleil qui se répand à l'aube. Laissez-la se déplacer gracieusement dans votre corps. À chaque respiration, elle grandit, vous remplissant de la tête aux pieds, atteignant chaque cellule, chaque espace à l'intérieur de vous. Visualisez ce bien-être, cette plénitude et cette joie se déplaçant au-delà du physique. Voyez-les s'étendre à vos systèmes énergétiques, les illuminant de leur santé. Ils apportent l'équilibre à vos émotions, la clarté à vos pensées et un profond sentiment de paix à votre esprit. Alors que vous continuez à respirer, un sentiment de bien-être complet englobe tout votre être. Vous êtes en harmonie avec vous-même, corps, esprit et âme. Dans cet espace, vous comprenez que le bien-être, la plénitude et la joie sont au cœur de votre état naturel, une partie essentielle de qui vous êtes. Vous ressentez cette plénitude comme une présence stable et inébranlable en vous. Elle est toujours là, toujours accessible. Chaque fois que vous souhaitez vous reconnecter à ce sentiment, il vous suffit de vous tourner vers l'intérieur. Pendant environ 5 minutes, cette pause et cette guidance vous invitent à vous engager personnellement avec les ondes jumelles quantiques, à approfondir votre connexion et à améliorer votre expérience au maximum de son potentiel. Quand vous vous sentez prêt, ramenez doucement votre conscience au moment présent. Prenez quelques respirations profondes et lorsque vous ouvrirez les yeux, emportez avec vous ce sentiment de bien-être et de plénitude. Laissez-le infuser chaque instant de votre journée. En conclusion de cette méditation, avancez avec confiance en sachant que les ondes jumelles quantiques continuent de circuler en vous et que leur influence positive reste active et s'étend bien au-delà du temps que nous partageons dans cet espace. Faites ce pas et tous ceux qui suivront en sachant que vous êtes bénis.
Okay. That's so beautiful. How are you guys doing?
I pulled my white hat out for Doreen
I
'cause
love it.
Sandy's got hers on too. It's a white hat day.
Did you bend the brim on that to make
No,
it came that
it
way?
came that way. Yeah. Hers is a different one. This is the yeah, it came that way. See that? Yeah, Dave's got it too. Yeah.
It's helpful.
Today's a white hat day. I heard we had French.
Yep.
How many people knew there was going to be French?
We talked about it at the beginning of the WoW call.
Okay.
We've played it before on the WoW call, and a lot of us really liked it because we were able to go so deep. Not sometimes when Laura talks and then there's a pause and then she starts talking again, the words are familiar enough to like kind of make me personally come out. And so I prefer the French because then I just stay deep the whole time.
Yeah, I speak French a little bit, enough so that I am stalled throughout the whole thing listening to it in French. I couldn't listen to it because it's just too troublesome because I don't know what she's saying. And I know a little bit, enough to say, oh, okay, that's what she's saying. And then I try to think about it instead of being calm and just letting go where I need to go. So that's my problem.
I would like to hear from you guys who loves it and for what reason. Like, how deep do you go with that difference? And have any of you guys done the Japanese one? No?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'd like to hear it.
We'll do that in
Look,
2
Is it
weeks.
available yet?
Yeah. Christine sent it to me.
Oh,
So
nice.
we'll try that one in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, Adelita, go ahead, please.
I like that because it makes me think of love, loving the universe, loving everybody. So it's kind of makes me think of that. Yes.
The romantic language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've always wanted to go to Italy, so hopefully one day.
Well, this one was French.
Well, I want to go to Italy, but I want to go to
Oh.
Rome and all those places around there. Take a
Yeah.
long trip.
Me too.
Yeah.
My son's in Belgium right now, my oldest, and he's like, oh, my French has come back because he studied French and went to Paris for an exchange trip. So, anybody have an experience they want to share from this meditation? Nobody?
The only thing I can say is I went really a lot deeper on this one.
Cool. Me too, Sandy. Kira, do you want to share what you told me this morning about 100?
You mean about the inflammation or the energy or all of it?
Yeah, whatever you want to share. I thought that was really insightful.
Well, I forgot what I said. But I woke up this morning and oh yeah, and with tons of energy, and I just got mine back yesterday before the volunteer call. Like literally, I was unpacking it, rushing to sign on to the call, and right away I felt like it took about 15 minutes, and I started to feel my cells doing things that I hadn't felt before, and then I slept really well. I woke up, but it was a different kind of wake up and went right back to sleep. And I woke up this morning with so much energy. I actually got up at 4:30 and I got on my mat and started exercising because Tracy and I were talking the other day and she said, you have to exercise. You have to just get up and do it. And I'm like, yeah. And then today I just did it. And then I got on the meditation and then I went to the beach. But one of the things I noticed was that when I woke up this morning, I had no inflammation. And for the past couple of months, I thought it was maybe because of my diet change or what was happening. I was getting more and more and more inflamed. And then it occurred to me this morning that because the HHS I did have only went to 50 and I was playing with the dials, trying to find the right place. And one of my main issues is my gut, my digestion and inflammation, full body inflammation. And it occurred to me now that it's at 100, I don't feel inflamed at all. Today, I'm sure it could, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but it could, I allow for the fact that it could go up and down, but to have such a dramatic change from today, from yesterday, it made me think that, some people are saying that the low frequency, the low number, people are having reactions to it, and the higher numbers they're not. And then Dr. A made these adjustments. And so I'm wondering if those last 3 months, 2 months of my huge, like somebody had a hydraulic pump pumping me up every day, maybe that was that the device frequency wasn't right for me. And now at 100, everything's just moving right along.
Isn't that something? That's fun to report. Cynthia,
Yeah.
did you add
The
something?
wake up from yesterday to today is huge difference.
That's cool. I slept like a baby with my HHS right next to my bed, thankfully. I missed that thing. I didn't realize how much I missed it until it was back. So very cool. Cynthia, do you want to add anything?
Dr. Alfredo is so jazzed and so excited about the changes that he's brought. And he's going to be talking about that more, about the results that he's achieving, which are going to be incredible. I can't wait. We're going to learn all about it. And that's all I can say, because it's technical and it's important. And I don't want to speak out of turn. I want him to be the one to share this information. And it's coming. And we're going to be in Salt Lake City next week. Tracy's going to be there. And we have to decide what calls we're going to be doing next week when we're all together. Right, Tracy? I want to call you about that and talk about that, because we've got to make that plan here today. Okay. Right?
Yep.
So exciting things,
I'm excited.
exciting things. Oh my gosh, it's wonderful. So
Thank you. I'm
we'll talk about it.
super pumped. Okay, you guys, shall we close in our typical way? Prayer pose. Up to your forehead, your third eye. May you think only joyful thoughts. To your lips, may we speak only kind words. And to our heart, may we show love to ourselves and to all those around us. Peace, peace, peace.
Peace.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Cynthia, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Marian, for doing a beautiful, heartfelt presentation. Thank you, Sally. And thank you to all for just hanging out and spending time loving yourself to health.
Thank you.
Love you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank-
We'll see you next
Thank
time.
you, dear
Thank
ones.
you,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye-bye.
Love you
Bye.
guys.
Love you guys. Thank you.